Hey, welcome back to another video. Today's a very exciting one because we will be testing out the brand new RMS Hydra Bronzers. They claim that these are the same formulas as the blushes, so we'll be seeing about that. Kind of worries me a bit because the blushes are shimmery, these are shimmery. I'm wondering if together it may be too much. We will figure it out together. Also very curious about the shade, how it's going to work on fair skin, cool tones. Don't worry, we're going to go through it all, so let's go ahead and get started. If you're new to my channel, the RMS French Rose Hydra Blush is one of my favorite blushes of all time. I'm obsessed with these formulas. If you aren't new, you've probably heard me talk about this countless times. So of course I'm really naturally excited for the bronzer version of this. So it's described as a talc-free long wear gel to powder bronzer in a refillable mirrored compact, and it has 4 different shades. Also says it glides on effortlessly, infusing skin with multi-dimensional life as the bouncy light as air gel blends and builds golden sun-kissed color. Also a refillable product. So there is 4 shades. I got the lightest shade Beachwalk Betty, which says a sweet kiss of sun with neutral nude undertones. So hopefully it won't be too orange for fair skin tones. The 3 other shades, they have a warm one, a medium one with neutral undertones, and then they have a deep bronze with a terracotta base, which looks like it might be a little bit more red. In terms of the shade range, they could definitely expand it in the deep range. We'll see how this light one works and if they could do with another fair shade as well. Let's get into the product. Here is the box that it comes in, pretty basic RMS box. Not really what we're here for the product. So it looks exactly the same as the blush, but it has sort of a bronze RMS logo on it versus the red one that's on the blush. Open her up, and it does have a slightly different sort of embossing on it compared to the blush. The blush sort of has this like grid diamond-esque one, and this one is more of like a sunburst. I used to think that these were baked products, but someone let me know that they are not a baked formula. They're gel to powder formulas, so they're basically made to not look like powders, which I really love. Again, this is the shade Beachwalk Betty. Let's swatch her on the hand first, compare it to some of my other favorite bronzers, and then we'll put it on the face. So when I'm sort of like rubbing my finger in it, it doesn't pick up a ton of product. You kind of have to take the time to build it up on your finger, which for a bronzer is a good sign because I do like a more sheer product. Here is what it's looking like on the back of my hand. It pulls quite orange on the back of my hand actually. I don't know if it's because the amount that I swatched. We'll see how it applies to the face. But I also wanted to compare it to the NYX Buttermelt bronzer because this also claims to have like a neutrally rosy tone. So here is the NYX Buttermelt bronzer in the shade Buttercup. That's actually really interesting. They are quite similar. The RMS one has a little bit more, I think you can see it has slightly more of like a reddish pinkish tone to it. This one pulls kind of just like neutral warm on me. And then I also wanted to compare with the Hourglass Luminous Baked Bronzer. Basically just comparing all of my favorites. If you haven't seen it, you have fair skin, cool undertones, I have a complete bronzer guide if you need recommendations that I recently uploaded that do not pull orange. So I will have that link throughout the video. Here is the Flower Beauty one. Ooh, we're getting some very similar tones here. Again, the RMS one is clearly the most pink out of all of these. And then the Hourglass in Nude Bronze Light as well. This is one of my warmer bronzers. There is the Hourglass on the bottom, which out of everything clearly has the most neutral warm tones. It's really interesting how all of these actually are pulling quite similar. They're a lot of my favorite bronzers, so that's a good sign. I do also have their bronzer brush to use today, which is really similar to the one I usually use. This is a Luxie blush brush. I usually use something that's quite loose and lightly packed, which both of these are. I always recommend that if you have fair skin or bronzers pull really dark on you, using a really fluffy brush, especially like a duo fiber one like this, just gonna apply it a lot lighter so you don't end up with like too much product because it's really hard to take it away, but we can always build it up. Let me scoot up a little bit and let's put this on. I'm really excited to bronze my face, so let's, ooh, okay. The brush gave me a little bit of kickback, so I'd probably suggest sort of sweeping it onto the product. So whenever I like to use powder products, I always like to take the product. You can use the palm of your hand or really anything you want. And I just like to work it into the brush. That way you're getting even pigmentation on the brush, because the last thing we want is uneven application on the brush, because that's gonna mean it's gonna be uneven on the face. So even though it does look like it's slightly uneven on the brush because I worked it in. The pigment should be more even. Okay, now that we have that on, let's start just putting this on and see what we're working with. It's definitely more sheer right off the bat, which I really like. Okay, that is pretty. This brush, I would say, slightly big for my taste. I'd like to have something a little bit smaller, but it is applying nice and evenly. This is looking really pretty and natural. It's not really looking as shimmery as the blushes look on the skin. I will have to swatch them next to each other and we'll compare sort of the luminosity, because that is what I was worried about. Is it gonna be too much with the blush? We will be putting the blush on too to see how it compares. Just to really show you the color, I'm gonna keep building this up. I would probably just leave it where it's at though for every day because I like a light bronze look. Let's load her up, let's get bronzy. A little bit down the neck as well. I was slightly concerned that this shade might pull like a little bit orange, but it's honestly a beautiful bronzer on the skin. I like the tone of it. It is definitely not pulling too orange or too warm because it has that sheerness to it. If you have fair skin, it's just something that it's gonna work way better for you than any other sort of really pigmented bronzer because it's so workable and you can control the amount of pigment and build it up if you want to without going overboard right off the bat. So I just swatched the blush on this finger. I'm just gonna look up close. I'm really curious to see if it's as shiny as the blush. It doesn't really seem like it is. Like here is the blush, which is clearly like a lot more reflective than the bronzer, which I love that they toned down the shimmer a little bit because I was worried. I was like, if I have this blush on and this bronzer on, I feel like it would be too much. But this is for sure a little more toned down. It is still a shimmery bronzer, but these shimmers are really nice and smooth. Let's go ahead and apply the blush on top. This is the shade French Rose, by the way. Okay, this is looking so pretty. I love this combo. I don't think it's too shimmery. You can see the glow that the blush added, but I really do love that they toned this down just a little bit. If you've been looking for like a neutral, slightly rosy toned bronzer, highly recommend this one. I think they did such a great job with this fair shade. Like it almost looks like it could be a blush for some people, which I like because most bronzers are just so orange and don't work for me. So the fact that I can like really build this up is a big win. You definitely don't need a highlight with these glowy products, but I'm gonna add a little bit of my Mercier powder highlight. Now that I'm thinking of it, I really hope they do highlighters next, and if they have like a really light, icy, maybe even like purpley tone, I'm gonna be in love. Like I really truly love the blush formula, so I hope they just keep pumping out products with that same formula. It seems to be really popular too. Like I know a lot of you guys really love them as well. It's just so pretty. The shimmer is so smooth. It really isn't texture enhancing. I've always been someone who loves shimmer, but I don't like texture enhancing products, and the bronzer and the blush, perfect. Am I surprised that I really ended up liking my favorite blush formula in a bronzer form? Not really, but I really hope you found this review and swatch and try on of the shade and formula helpful. If you were curious about these, let me know if you will be picking this up and which shade caught your eye. Like I did mention, they really don't have the best for deep shades, so I hope they do expand that in the future. But this one, for us fair people, if you have cool undertones, bronzers pull warm on you, for sure try it out. But thank you so much for tuning in. This was just a quick little one, so I will put another video here so we can keep hanging out. YouTube thinks you're gonna like this one, so let's find out. I'll see you over there. Bye.